Everyone, welcome to another 5 Minutes With, where we take a relevant topic, something that's important in our lives, and we spend just a few minutes on it to make sure that we're approaching everything with a biblical worldview. And so today we're going to do 5 minutes with media. And I don't mean like news media. I mean a question that I get quite regularly, a conversation I've had frequently with people, non-Christians included. What kind of media should I consume? How do I pick and choose? Now, I think it's a little bit more relevant for Christians, but I've had conversations with non-believers about, hey, the media we consume affects our thoughts, affects our mind frame, affects our emotions, things like that. But with Christians especially, I've had numerous conversations over the years of, how do I know what I shouldn't watch, what I shouldn't read, what I shouldn't listen to, whether we're talking about music, whether we're talking about movies, TV shows, books, video games, etc. First, let's deal with the obvious ones, because even though they may seem obvious, it doesn't mean we shouldn't mention them. There's clearly content out there that Christians just have no business engaging with, whether it is sexually explicit, graphically violent, horrifically abusive, or slanderous, blasphemous, things like that. There are movies that have been made throughout Hollywood's history that portray the devil in a positive manner, or as someone to make deals with and things like that. William Dafoe did a very famous movie, The Last Temptation of Christ. So there's stuff that's very obviously heretical, even as fictional material, stuff that's very obviously blasphemous or very obviously problematic in terms of its glorification of sin. I think that should be an easy one for all Christians. We have no business consuming that sort of stuff. Actually referencing a sermon that was given recently at our church by my dad when he was visiting, and he used in the passage in Mark 8, and he talks about, beware the leaven of the Pharisees. A little leaven affects the whole lump. We can't consume media like that and not be affected by it. You just can't. It's in there. It's burned into your retinas. It's seared into your mind. So obviously avoid the really problematic stuff. But that's not what people tend to ask about. It's the stuff that's gray. Okay, the show isn't explicitly Christian, but it's not explicitly horrible. It's a regular cable program, so there's no like graphic nudity or graphic sex. There's no graphic violence. They swear a little bit, but not the really bad words. Is this a show that's okay for me to watch? I'm going to go to a verse in Philippians 4. We've said with these 5-minute videos that just because they're briefer topics doesn't mean that we're not going to scripture for them. So Philippians 4:8 says, "Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things." That's a standard I tend to use. And now look, you're not hearing me say we can only watch Christian movies, we can only read Christian fiction books, we can only listen to Christian music. I enjoy the band Queen. There are times where I throw on my retro playlist and I blast some Queen, right? There are times where I also recognize, I just really need to be in worship right now. So I'm not saying there needs to be a blanket ban on anything that is not explicitly Christian in its message, right? The only movie that you can own is Facing the Giants and nothing else. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying we need to be asking these questions of the media we consume of, okay, is this blatantly impure? Is this blatantly unjust? Is this blatantly dishonorable? Is this blatantly, I don't know what the opposite of lovely would be, ugly? Is it not commendable? Is there no excellence in this? Because if we're going to err on a side, I would much rather we err on the side of, maybe that PG-13 movie isn't as bad as some of the R-rated stuff out there, so I know I'm not going to touch that. Maybe I could watch that PG-13 one, but I'm going to be a little extra cautious. Why would we not want to err on the side of protecting our minds and what comes in? I mean, there's so many verses that talk about this. We reference Mark 8. I reference this one in Philippians 4 where it calls us to think on these things. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. What defiles a man is what comes out from the inside, but it's what we consume that affects the way we think and puts these patterns into our thought life, into our subconscious, things like that. And so I think we do need to be very careful with the media we watch, the media we listen to, the books we read, because when we start to justify and when we start to grow comfortable with sin in a fictional sense, I think it's going to be pretty hard to resist not justifying and being comfortable with sin in a non-fictional, real sense. And so as we're approaching the winter months where we tend to be inside more, consuming more of this media because we can't be outside working on the yard or anything like that, I want to make sure that we're being careful and diligent in all areas, not growing complacent. See you next time.